Cool. So with our questions, I'm going back to the chat. If I'm looking up there, that's because we have I have my screen over there where I can see the chat. First, we have David commenting on Facebook. We have David commenting on Facebook. Hello, everyone. Please let us know where you are joining from. And then we also had Laura saying, hello, everyone. Jenna Dean said, hi, Francisco. Hello. Good to see you again. We had Sadan Yasser saying, is this only for people in the United States? So, Sadan, that's a great question. We're going to answer questions, whatever questions you may have, we will be answering them. We do specialize in the undergraduate admissions process within the US, but we've also helped many international students who are interested in going through this application process. So the concrete answer is we primarily focus on students in the US who want to go to college in the US. But if you have any questions that you think might be relevant for this Q&A live stream, then by all means do feel free to ask, and to the extent of my abilities, although we specialize again on domestic applications, yeah, I'll go ahead and give it a shot at international questions. So that was from YouTube. I'll get back to that chat over there in a second, but let me go ahead and share this other question. Justin Mueller asked, is the FAFSA on YouTube, is the FAFSA open yet? When should we fill it out? So this is an excellent question, Justin. So the FAFSA, for those of you that do not know, the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. And what that does is, through a series of questions, it goes ahead and enables, whether it's the federal government or universities that use the FAFSA for institutional aid, whatever entity is looking into that application, it ultimately looks down to something that's called the estimated family contribution number, and that is how much money it's expected for the family to contribute towards tuition for this student. And based on that, a lot of awards are given out. So now that I've answered what the FAFSA is, your question is the FAFSA open yet? When should we fill it out? So the FAFSA opens every year on October 1st, and it should be filled out the year before a student is going to be enrolled in college. So with that being said, it should be filled out for the first time senior year, the senior year of high school for the student, and continue to be filled out every year before senior year of college. So senior year of high school, freshman year of college, sophomore year of college, junior year of college. And then because you're not going to be enrolled again unless you do a fifth year, you don't have to fill it out senior year. But yes, that is when you should fill it out, as soon as it opens on the October 1st deadline. And then year to year, do fill out that FAFSA, because it could qualify you for a lot of need-based and merit-based awards. So thank you for that question, Justin. Next up, I'm going to go to, we have a question from Jenna Dean. So Jenna asks, how often do students fill out the CSS profile? Is it like the FAFSA? Yeah, Jenna. So the FAFSA, as I mentioned, it's a federal level application, and we very much encourage students to fill out the FAFSA every year, because many people make the mistake of assuming that because they make too much money, or, you know, they think they're overqualified for the FAFSA and they would receive, you know, no aid from that. They get discouraged from applying in the first place. And they do this without realizing that the FAFSA qualifies you for a lot of merit-based awards. So we very much encourage people to fill out the FAFSA every year. And now that you're asking how often does the CSS profile get filled out, well, the answer is also every year, but it depends on whether or not your school requires it. So in Best College Aid, we teach our students, you know, when they're going through their application process and the process of filling out a list of colleges, you know, which schools require the CSS profile and which don't. Because unlike the FAFSA, which is at the federal level, CSS profile is at the institution level. So It depends on your school, but if your school does require the CSS profile, yeah, just keep that in mind, that's something that you would have to fill out. All right. Let's see more questions. We have another question here from Melissa Trey. Melissa asks, what is the difference between the FAFSA and the CSS profile? I have answered that. From Jenna Dean's question, let's see if we have another question. Debbie Johnson asks, how many colleges should I apply to? So, how many colleges should a student apply to is something that we covered in last week's live stream, but I think this is an excellent opportunity to share with the people who weren't here last week or who just need a refresher, especially because it is the summer. So, how many colleges should I apply to? What we recommend is starting off with a potential list of colleges between 8 and 12 schools. And that list should be divided between reach, target, and safety schools. So whether it's a combination of 4 reach schools, 4 target, and 4 safety schools, or however you want to make that distribution depending on how many reach schools you want to apply to and how confident you feel about your safety schools, we do recommend creating that sort of distribution between the type of schools that you will be applying to. Again, if you are a little bit foggy on what reach, target, and safety schools are, we cover that in depth in our free presentation for the 6 tips to go to college with scholarships. Just to give you an overview as I'm answering this question, reach, exactly what it sounds like, schools that you're highly that are highly selective, that if they're your top choice, it would be a blessing to go. Very, very selective, low acceptance rate. Those are your reach schools. Target schools are the ones that seem the more realistic, in which your statistics, whether that's GPA, SAT, or ACT, are on par with the average of their incoming class. And then safety schools are schools for which you can think of as being overqualified. So that means your statistics as far as GPA, SAT, ACT are above that of the average student at that university. So to answer your question concretely, how many schools should I apply to? Recommend having a list 8 to 12 divided between reach, target, and safety schools. And that way you can still pursue your top choices, which are, your reach schools, while also having the safety of your target and safety schools being there for you in case it doesn't work out with your more ambitious applications at those schools. Cool. So I'm going to take a little break as I wait for more questions to roll in. Again, to remind you to follow us on our platforms. We are at Best College Aid USA in English, and that is across the board for YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Again, in those platforms, because they are so distinct in what they are offering. So TikTok's obviously is a format of shorter videos. Instagram, you can do the carousels, a couple of videos. Facebook, you can do the live streams, same way as with YouTube. Also, you can do live streams on TikTok and Instagram, but with YouTube and Facebook, we're able to share the slides like we're doing right now. So the point of sharing all these different platforms is that they each come along with different types of content that we post, all of them educational, all of them to help you parents, help your students get accepted to college with scholarships. But in case you didn't know and you're watching us for the first time, whether it's through the TikTok live or through YouTube or Facebook live, do know that the same way that you are watching through that platform, there are 3 others that you can feel free to follow us, and that way you get all the information that we consistently put out there. And again, before I go back to the questions, I do want to take this opportunity again to thank to thank our sponsor, Best College Aid. The Best College Aid program is the thing that enables us to go ahead and tune in once a month to do these Q&A sessions and once a week per platform to do these live streams. Because of the Best College Aid program support, we have this time with you all. So if you're interested in anything that I covered through today's presentation, if you want to learn a more in-depth breakdown of what the steps should look like or how it should be followed, with more tools than just the slides that I have on Facebook and YouTube, and just my face and my voice on TikTok. If you want to really see, because we have more audio visual tools to show, like we have a screen share, we have infographics. So if you want to learn a little bit more in depth of everything that we're talking about, or you're simply just curious about how you can learn the 6 strategies to help your children get accepted to college with scholarships, do check out that link in bio. Once again, thanks to our sponsor, Best College Aid program. So let's get back to the questions. So the next question that we have in this live stream is Patti Lozano asked, what is the difference between weighted and unweighted GPA? That's a great question, and one that certainly applies to students who are, considering the strength of their application. I know I briefly mentioned earlier that there's a breakdown or a difference between reach, target, and safety schools. Well, to consider which school should be categorized in which level, whether they're a reach school, a target school, or a safety school, students should know their own statistics. Again, whether that's GPA, ACT scores, SAT scores, their involvement in extracurricular activities. And because, as I mentioned, GPA is such a big component of an application, knowing the difference between these two is super, super important. So to concretely answer your question, let me go ahead and repeat it, and then I'll answer it. What is the difference between a weighted GPA and an unweighted GPA? Well, the difference between the two is that the weighted GPA factors in the rigor of the classes. So it factors in whether or not a school is a class is an AP class, an honors class, a regular class. These advanced level classes are weighted a little bit more severely, or they have a positive weight to them, which makes the GPA be out of a higher scale. So some schools do up to a 6.0 scale, some of them cap it at 5.0. But what they do with this weighted GPA, it's a way that colleges can see and consider the strength or the rigor of the curriculum that the student took throughout the 4 years of high school, and that they can factor that into their decision. So that is weighted GPA. Unweighted GPA does not consider the factors of whether a class was regular, honors, or AP. And as a result, it's only out of a 4.0 base. So an A is an A regardless of whether it was in a regular class or an AP class. And why does this matter, and why is this something that you should know of? Well, in general, obviously advanced level classes, because they are, more heavily weighted on a weighted GPA scale, are the best bang for buck, because an A will be, again, in some cases, and depending on the class, could be upwards to a 6.0 or upwards to a 5.0, whereas an A in the same class but at a lower level could be just a 4.0. In colleges, a lot of them, they calculate their own GPA or their own average, and that's why they require the transcripts. So the reason why I'm sharing this with y'all, and the reason why, Patty, this is such a relevant question, is because when your student is selecting a class, it's very heavily encouraged, and something that we teach our members in Best College Aid is to do some sort of self-assessment as to what their strengths are. What classes is my student good at, or what is something that they do not excel at. Maybe they're not great at math, or they're not great at history, but they're great at English or whatnot. So having this self-awareness certainly positions you in such a way that your student can enroll in those advanced level courses for the subjects that they're great at, and they can save the honors or regular courses for the classes or the subjects that they're not necessarily great at. And by having this healthy combination based on their strengths and weaknesses, they can maximize the classes with the higher scale, and as a result, maximize their GPA when it comes time to apply for colleges. So to summarize everything I just said, weighted GPA takes into consideration the rigor of the classes, whether that is honors, AP, IB, whatever it may be. So the weight of the class gets factored into the scale of the GPA. As a result, they're higher than a 4.0, whereas unweighted GPA does not consider the rigor of the class and just scales everything out of a 4.0 scale and just says an A is a 4, a B is X amount, and that's the same across the board. So yeah, hopefully that answers the question and provides a little bit more value to you all. Cool. So I see that now we are having a couple more questions on TikTok. So I'm gonna go ahead and read that. So La La Land says hello, and then she asks, when should my kids start practicing an extracurricular? That's a great question. When it comes to extracurricular activities, colleges care about two things. One of them being leadership, the other one being duration. Leadership is something that we've covered extensively in our previous live streams. More specifically, last week, we talked about the importance of leadership and how that affected my financial aid package when I got a full ride at UNC. But when it comes to an extracurricular and your question specifically of when should my student start getting involved in extracurricular activities, that goes more along the aspect and the pillar of duration, the second very important aspect of an extracurricular activity. So duration has to do with how long a student has been practicing an extracurricular activities. And as a general rule of thumb, the longer, the better. You know, many students or many parents ask us, oh, is it cool if I joined a bunch of activities? What if I have only been part of, I don't know, the band club or the debate club for, yes, the duration of my entire high school career, but it's only one club. Like, what's better, quantity or quality? To which I always say that at least in the element of duration, it's much, much better to have fewer activities that a student is heavily involved in and has had a long-lasting impact, and they're not just members, but take those positions of leadership, than just join a bunch of clubs your senior year and say, hey, I was part of 20 clubs. Look at me. You know, duration and taking the time to pursue those activities from an early age shows college admissions officers, you know, the dedication that a student has and the commitment that a student has to those activities. So that's very helpful if you are a parent specifically of a middle school student, because you can leverage that by making middle school an exploration phase in which your student goes ahead and practices a bunch of different extracurricular activities so they can weed out the ones that they don't like. And then when college comes around, when high school comes around, they can commit to that activity and pursue it throughout the 4 years and display the element of duration that colleges so very much care about, because they took the time early on in middle school to explore what they didn't like and discard it, rather than in high school, you know, get involved in something and then not like it. And by the time that you realize or find what you do like, it's already junior year and you can't really show that sort of commitment to colleges because there's just not enough time to be involved in that activity for a long time. So that is my answer to when should your students be enrolled in extracurricular activities. I see we have another question from Uncle Ball Slime. I hope I'm saying that right. What are some unique ways that students can contribute to a college campus? So a student can contribute to a college campus. Yeah, that's a great question. I had a bunch of friends when I went to the University of North Carolina who worked in, and these were the jobs that I always was a little jealous by because they looked like so much fun. I did have a fun college job. I worked as a lifeguard. So that was like an extra class where I would just go and you know, watch a bunch of students who were meeting their fitness requirement for the school. So it wasn't that demanding or taxing, but I was always very envious, I always looked at my friends who were tour guides, and they were having so much fun because, you know, they were welcoming all the family of potential new students or incoming freshmen, and they were giving out all these tours. They knew all the fun stories about the traditions of the school, and I would say that made a big impact on campus just because it brought out a lot of livelihood and a lot of people when they're touring colleges, for the most part, parents think of it as a fun experience, and students are super excited. It's the first time seeing what college life really, looks like between classes, between, the campus wide, the quads, all that stuff. So everyone's usually in a good mood, and that was a pretty nice contribution I think that my friends had on campus. But the cool thing also about college, and your very important question of ways that students can contribute to their college campus, is that I never really knew that there could be so many organizations or clubs in a single institution until I got to college, and I saw that there was literally the first week of classes. They had something called student fall fest, and that was when in the football field all the different clubs set up shop, and they advertised what their club was and encourage people to join. And I kid you not when I say there were over like 150 organizations just at that event, not even like in the campus as general. And there was everything from, the bowling club, gaming club, there was a jiu-jitsu club, rowing, canoeing, paddleboarding, anything and everything. So I would say a good way to make an impact on campus would probably be to make your own impact. I know friends that when they didn't find a club, which was very, very rare because most of the time there was a club for them, they would just get a bunch of their friends who were interested in it and start their own club. So yeah, I think that a way to bring your own flair to campus by getting involved in a very niche specific organization, it's a fun way to add to that campus, because there definitely are other people who, perfect example, my freshman year of college, I joined the Quidditch team just for one season, but it was something novel that I never even knew existed. And I just saw there were probably like 70 people at that first rec practice, and they were all friends. They were all hanging out. I didn't stick with it. I just wanted to try it out, but I'm sure that in their own way, they made a contribution to the UNC campus by having that activity. And me 5 years later saying, "Oh yeah, I did that. That was a contribution that the people involved in the Quidditch team made to their campus." So yeah, that was a fun question. I like that question. Thank you. I hope I answered it. Let's see. I do not see that we have any more questions. So if you've been watching and if you are live, following up with this presentation right now would be a great time to ask that question that you've been, maybe holding on to for the last 30 minutes. While you do that, while you comment in the chat what the last questions that you may have are, I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, you guessed it, once again, thank the Best College Aid program for sponsoring this live stream. Again, if you have not already done so, or if you're interested in anything that I've answered, or if there are questions that you have that you just don't want to go ahead and chat, you rather, address them at your own time. Well, there's no time like the present. So either ask them or go ahead and register for our free training that we have in the link in bio. That's where we share in a more organized way the 6 strategies that helped us and that helped my parents send us to college with a full ride. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't done so already. Once again, thanks to the Best College Aid program for sponsoring this live stream and for enabling us, me, Laura, David, to be able to have these presentations. We wouldn't be able to do this without the Best College Aid program. So go ahead and check that free presentation out if you have not already done so. So now that I have shared that with you all, again, I want to remind you to follow us while you prepare your last few questions. I see a couple more comments in the YouTube chat, but again, this last chance, ask your question. While you do that, follow us on our platforms, Best College Aid USA, same across the board for YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. That's where we share all of our educational content and where we do these live streams, as you can see right now. Okay, so I see Ishant Kahar is saying hi, and I am looking at the YouTube and Facebook chats, looking for any final last minute questions. I don't see any on TikTok down here. I don't see any on Facebook over there. So I am going to assume that there are no more questions. And I am going to take the time to thank you for letting me into your homes, even though it's just through this digital means, the screen of your phone. It's always the highlight of my week when I get to do these presentations, the highlight of my month when I get to do this Q&A questions. I particularly like that last question that I answer about unique ways to contribute to your college campus. So if you enjoyed it, do not hesitate to give us a follow, to reach out with any questions, and do, again, as I prepare to log off for the day, do not forget to check out that free training that we have, 6 strategies to help your children get accepted to college with scholarships. Thanks to Best College Aid for sponsoring this live presentation. I'm Francisco Cantu. Once again, thank you for allowing me into your homes and sharing this hour